Assalamu alaikum, peace. It's Fatima, Coach Fatima, 1/3 of Outstanding Personal Relationships and co-author of the book, Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored, right here. Okay, I'm going to start in a few. Let me know where you're tuning in at for this Fulfillment Night Live, because it's nighttime on the side of the world that I'm on. And for those of you that are experiencing daytime, we're calling it Fulfillment Now Live with Coach Fatima. So I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping really quickly, and then we will begin very shortly. So let me know where you're from, where you're tuning in at, because we love to know that so we can shout you out during the live stream. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. I would definitely appreciate it. Okay, just 1 second here, and off we go. Okay, let's see. All right, so I'm going to be talking about jealousy and why it's important to talk about jealousy and what is actually happening when women that are married to a man that practices polygamy, which is the practice of having more than one wife simultaneously. What is actually happening when we feel jealousy? I'm going to get into that right now. So I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and best practices for best results on this topic, which is, it's so important that we understand what's going on with us when it's actually happening in real time. Okay, so let's look right here. I'm going to be checking the chat while I am facilitating the live tonight. And if you don't know me, I'm Coach Fatima, again, 1/3 of Outstanding Personal Relationships. Now, I say that because my husband has 2 wives currently, myself and Coach Nyla. So he's been practicing polygamy for over 15 years now. And we hit our head. We had to go through some trial and error, and we all had our own learning curves. So what polygyny initially meant to me, for those of you that might be new, is that there was some type of fear of loss, whether it was resources, time, connection, togetherness, having him, around when I felt like I needed him or he needed me, was something that I definitely had to transition into. And the transition was not easy in our case. And we grew to understand what was best for the family as a whole. One of the things about the word monogamy, and I'm going to get into that because it's very important, is that when we hear the word monogamy, we do hear the word me. And because English is not a rich language and it's not an old language, what we end up doing is we look at monogamy as there's some ownership in there, even though we might not say it, because sometimes we'll think this is my man. Some women speak it and they'll say my man, my husband. And that's okay if we're speaking about being specific. So you'll hear me say my husband. You'll hear Coach Nyla say my husband. When we're together, we say our husband. But there's no ownership of Coach Nadir. And it's very important to understand that, because when we start to see the word or hear the word monogamy, and we hear it's all about me, what I want, the dream that I have for my marriage. When polygyny comes into play, that feels as though it has shattered a dream that we wanted our husband to live in. So what we're going to unpack tonight is jealousy and what is actually happening when we are jealous as women in polygyny. Because remember, we're women, we're wives in polygyny, not husbands in polygyny, which is much different because they're shouldering a responsibility that we do not completely understand. We'll understand it through the eyes of our husbands. We'll understand it in what we see them do. Because people can say, I love you. They can say, I'm responsible, I have integrity, but we should look at patterns and patterns of behavior. Is this person able to handle more than one wife? And that is a question that many men ask themselves and decide for themselves. One thing I learned in over 15 years that my husband has been practicing polygyny with a purpose, and it's not performative or decorative, is that I can't make the decision for him. I never could make the decision for him if he could practice polygyny or not. That's an intimate decision that he had to make for himself. Now that it impact my life or the lives of our children and our family as a whole, absolutely. But I'm not equipped to guide him in his decision making. But I will offer some support and some ideas. So I'm not just a talking head, just being one of his wives and a figurehead that has no voice, but it's absolutely my job. And I've felt that way for many years, many years in our marriage, that he's the leader of our family. He was the leader of our family when there was just him, myself, and our newborn daughter. He was the leader of our family when it was just him and myself. Because it started with the two of us and then expanded in a beautiful way. It wasn't met without its challenges. However, I knew he was the man for the job when he said that he was. So being in monogamy and then going into polygyny, I knew he was the man for the job. That didn't mean he didn't make mistakes along the way. We all do. I made so many and had to really hold myself accountable, because at first I didn't want to. I was like, well, you know what? I need to really make him see how I feel about this. He needs to know, because he has no idea whatsoever. It very well. And then I got to a point where I was shutting down and shutting him out. I said, well, I have to protect myself from him, because if I protect myself from him, then I don't have to feel jealous. I don't have to deal with this. Ignorance was not bliss, and I thought it was. And not try to examine his life in such detail. Then my life personally and my fulfillment journey changed. I had to really check myself. And he had to check me too. He had to check me too, because I was really projecting, because I didn't understand why he didn't have everything figured out, because he wanted to practice polygyny. He didn't have it all figured out because he never did it before. So I had this bar that was unrealistic and unfair. So I'm going to walk you through some of the things that changed for me. And I'll invite you to implement this today. This is something that you can start tonight. This is something that you could start today. I mean, immediately. Now, because there is a learning curve for everyone who is a part of or practicing polygyny, again, which is the practice of having more than one wife, it's important to break a few things down about jealousy and why it happens and what that looks like. So I have some notes and I'll be looking at them. So I'm still here with you. But again, if you just arrived, make sure you let me know where you're from and where you're tuning in from. How's your day going? And what are some of your concerns when it comes to polygyny and jealousy specifically? Remember, we're going to unpack some of this. Let's get started. So let's understand something. I'm going to put my glasses on so that I can see what's in front of me. I can see it, but this just really makes me focus. Okay, it makes my eyes focus. So let's go. Jealousy is something that women feel naturally. And when we try to act like that's not happening, or we might not even understand that that's something that's natural, we are not seeing ourselves as we should as women. As women. I'll give you an example. And my first daughter, my oldest child, I had out of 7, she was a toddler. And I would do this thing with her where I'd hug her dad and she kind of pushed me off of him. This is my daughter. This is my biological daughter with Coach Nadir. And she was such a little powerhouse, like most toddlers are. But that was her outlet. See? Now, did I teach her to take my hand and put it off of her? That no, it was something that was in her. She was jealous for her father. Another thing that was really funny, and my daughters, I love how they tell stories. I love it. Um, they were at the local Walmart with their dad. This story went down in infamy. I thought it was hilarious. They didn't think it was so funny when it was happening, but their dad was with them, and we had at the time um, we have four daughters and a bonus daughter. Shout out to her, love her to death. Um, and the cashier she thought that Coach Nadir was drop dead gorgeous, and she asked, my daughters are like clocking this and they're watching. I guess I wasn't there, but I guess the cashier thought that our daughters were Coach Nadir's nieces. And I remember a couple of my beautiful daughters saying, "Why we gotta be his nieces?" I said, "Oh," I said, "Because maybe because your dad looks young to have all these beautiful girls around him, and nobody would think that you were his grown daughters." No, 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 no. Mm-mm. They weren't trying to hear that. The woman was nosy. She should mind her business. And why we gotta, they were not feeling her at all. I was like, that's okay. I mean, people look at what's good looking. And so, um, and to see him with such beauty around him, and then he's good looking, and here they come and they're good looking. It's like, where do she, maybe the lady wanted to throw her hat into the ring. I don't know. It sounded like it from the way my daughters were describing it. I thought it was hilarious. But you see that? Our daughters are not his wives. They're his daughters. And they still were like, mm-mm. So there's a jealousy there. Leave my father alone and leave my mother's husband alone. I mean, it's something that happens naturally, but it's about not becoming immature in the moments when jealousy arises. Even our daughters in that moment were like, they didn't go off on her. I'm sure they were studying her, but they didn't go off on her. So they even had to practice maturity in that moment. So here's what happens when we're jealous. We have a fear of loss, abandonment, there's past experiences, there's wounds, there's a desire for validation and love, there's a comparison, and there is listen to me now, a social conditioning that happens. So, and in many cases, it can pit us against our co-wives if we're not careful, because as initial wives, there's this hierarchy that we're supposed to be there. And anything behind us is not good enough. It's not sufficient. So it is subsequent or subservient or sub whatever, or their secondary parent. Because especially in the West, we talk about being first. And if you're anything other than first, the only time I see second place celebrated is the Olympics. They're like, yep, and you got the silver medal. You almost got the gold, but you got the silver. That's good enough for us. The bronze is cute too, but we'd rather you have the gold or the silver. That's celebrated. That's celebrated. But when do we celebrate more than one wife and the subsequent wife? Because everything's sub with her. You're second place. You're second place in polygyny, and that's just not true. She's first place and queen in her monogamous marriage to the husband. She is. I'm the queen of my castle. My co-wife is the queen of hers. Because Nadir. Mm-hmm. She doesn't come over here and says, well, I'm the queen of this castle. No, she's never done that. She's never done that. And I've never done it to her. It goes with maturity, which is part of frame. And if you're not familiar with frame, frame stands for, we have one for men and for women. So frame stands for feminine, respectful, affectionate, admirable, mature, and exclusive. And jealousy is married with maturity. That's why I'm focusing on it for this live, because it's very important, and you'll see themes reoccurring with us at Outstanding Personal Relationships. And make sure if you're on YouTube, you're commenting, liking, and subscribing and sharing, because as we always say, and we always mean it, sharing is absolutely caring. Okay, so make sure that you are sharing the video. Now, I'm going to we're going to run through this because I need to, of course, spend time with my beautiful family before my night is over. So we're going to get into the 3 J's of jealousy. One is judgment, justification, and jeopardy. I'm going to get into that. So jealousy begins with self-judgment. We don't think of it that way, but it's about what the inner voice says. The inner voice says, I'm not enough. It says I should be more like her. Something is wrong with me. I love something that Coach Nadir told me in the early years of polygyny. And this was so important. He said it wasn't about me or something that I did. It was something about him. And that doesn't mean because that I'm wrong. He wasn't saying because I'm wrong and it's all about me. He didn't say it with arrogance. And I saw a window into his world as a husband, as a man. And I said, this is serious. This is serious. This is a serious conversation about this topic. So he knew in my jealous state of mind, I was dialing it down and go, did I do something to him? Did I do something wrong? What did I do? And he was like, it's not about you, it's about me. It's about something in me. So I said, I don't get to tell him that not have a goal in his life to expand his family. I had this conversation with myself. And I said, if the tables were turned, would I want someone to listen to me? Would I want my loved one, my wife, to listen to that part and understand it in the way that I do? So he can say it to me, but he can't understand it for me. He can't. So I had to understand it for myself, the way he was saying it and not add anything to it. And it was painful. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had with him in my marriage of over 30 years, to hear that part. Because I'm like, we started this family together. I don't get it. I don't get it. Because it felt like he went off script, and he didn't. He grew into the man that he was trying to be, that he wanted to be, that he had every desire to become. And I had to understand that part of loving him is understanding that he was not the man I married the day that I married him. He was never supposed to stay that way because he would have been stuck. And I had to speed up to the level of maturity that he was at the time to be able to say that to me, and hope that I would really understand that this was actually a heart to heart. This was delicate, it was scary. You don't have all the tools. We didn't have all the tools as we do now. And we're still, as our children grow, as our family gets bigger, meaning they're growing up, and really examining what that means for each member, not just Coach Nadir, but within our marriage at the time. I had to go, wow, this is a different conversation. This is a different conversation. So he knew I was running these things down, because I'm sure I said to him, well, did I do anything? I'm paraphrasing, but I know I did. So jealousy isn't about another wife. It's about how you speak to yourself. It's about how you speak to yourself in your marriage. So reframing what you say to yourself about yourself. And most importantly, what are you saying about your marriage to your husband? What are you speaking and breathing life into? One thing that I did wrong, and oh my goodness, if I could go back, I was not protecting my marriage like I was protecting my own feelings. That's where that monogamy part came in. See, I was protecting him from whatever enemy I thought he had, or people people he didn't like. If he didn't like somebody, I didn't like him with him, because all I needed to hear was that he doesn't like someone and he had a reason why. He didn't need to sell me on it at all. Oh no, we don't like them. Because if my husband viewed you as a threat, I don't care if it was police, animal, or mineral, if he didn't like you, if he didn't like a person, he had a reason why. There's something that they did that he did not like. Now, I know him enough to know he's not going to just look at one thing and go, ah, you got one good time. I'm not saying you don't, but he's going to evaluate, especially as an INTJ. If you're not familiar with the Myers-Briggs personality type test, make sure you take it. And understand a little bit more about what that means. So I knew that with his personality type, that they look at pattern of behavior and they look at the big picture, and they're big on respect and how people treat them, and they're big on loyalty, and they have a lot of integrity, and it takes a lot to impress them. They don't just fall head over heels for anybody, right? Maybe they're babies, but they don't just fall for anything. So if he tells me that I don't like that, that person X, Y, and Z, oh, well, then that's it. It's a wrap. I'm confident on that. And I know that I'm married to a good man and he's a man of integrity. I know that. I know that. So that's why I'm saying in some memes that I've posted on social media that OPR has posted, are we ready to let our good man go? Because we're jealous. I'm not. I'm not willing to. A whole lot would have to happen before that happens. The second thing is justification. Let's get on over to that. We justify how we feel instead of healing it. So we'll make justifications for why we project or we judge our husbands or our co-wife or ourselves even too harshly. If he didn't do, X, I wouldn't feel this way. If he didn't marry her, I wouldn't feel this way. I used to do that. I'm like, well, if this hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't feel like this. You can feel how you want to. You can be hurt. You can be hurt, but it's about how you react to it. Reaction is never good. Response. Response is a controlling action, meaning you can control how you respond. That means you have composure. You have composure. And when I reacted, I didn't have composure, and not having composure always led me down the wrong way. I mean, every single time. When I take a breath and wait, that's where the good stuff is. Having control in that way over you. You can't control anybody else. Another thing is we'll blame polygyny, the word polygyny. If it wasn't for polygyny, I wouldn't act like this. I wouldn't throw things. I wouldn't hit. I wouldn't name call. I wouldn't gaslight. I wouldn't. Polygyny, the word polygyny cannot do anything to you. It's about how we're receiving it, how we're supporting ourselves and our family in polygyny, how our husbands are practicing polygyny. Like, is he that man of integrity? What is he doing? Is his leadership need some work? Is he not a leader? Is he a great leader? We're just being hard-headed. Which one is it? One of the things that justification for your reactions does is it keeps you emotionally stuck. It'll absolutely keep you emotionally stuck. You can validate your feelings in a good way without building a story around it that's going to make someone else wrong, that's going to put you in victim mode. Victim mode for me never felt good. Many times I put myself there and I'm like, oh, I hate that. I don't like how I am with that. And then other people would put me there. Are you okay? How's the kids? They would create division between myself and Coach Nadir. Like, he wasn't there when I got kids, when the kids were born, deliver children, and we just throw him off. How are you and the children? And in many cases, I would say my family is doing great because I would see the division early on. I would see it. I'm like, oh, we're doing good. And, aren't you all divorced? And are you guys getting divorced? Are you sick? Is that why he married again? I'm like, who walks up and says that? People do. They do it because they themselves have to justify and blame shift and do anything that they can to make you feel less than because they know they would feel less than. So you should too. Equal opportunity. It's an equal opportunity, and it absolutely isn't. I don't want to be anybody's victim, and I'm not. No matter how much people would like for me to feel that way. The person that I'm concerned about and want to communicate with as best I can, and that's a work in progress, is my husband. I'm not concerned with someone who doesn't care about or love our family or wants to see it implode. I have no use for those people. So we're going to walk into the word jeopardy. That's number 3. Jeopardy is when jealousy feels like a threat to safety. It feels like a threat. So what ends up happening is it'll activate a fear of absolute loss, replacement, abandonment, and invisibility. You'll erase yourself from your own marriage. And this is costly. So what'll end up happening is our nervous system will start protecting us and we'll not have connection with our husband. We'll not have connection with our husband. I'll give you an example. My husband would come home and it would feel like a jump scare. It was like, oh, he has another wife. And he's going, what's going on? What's wrong? And I'm like, do you not see that you have another wife and I don't like that? Do you not see that? He could see that. He wasn't stupid. He's not a dumb person. He's never been. Now, he will admittedly say that he needed to deal with the emotional part because he was good at dealing with the logistics. And I really like how Coach Nadir put that because it taught me something. I said, oh, that's what it is. Because if that's what he said he did, then I need to believe that because he's not been a person that says something else, dude. It's not a bait and switch. If that's what he said he went through, then that's what he went through. And I think many times we want to tell our husbands what they're going through versus listening to them. That was horrible because I said, well, you know what? I'll just keep explaining and over explaining and telling him. He didn't need all that. He did not need all that. Over explaining can be looked at as a form of begging. And our husbands don't want to be talked to death and begged to death. They don't need it. That is something that we're doing for us to calm our nervous system down. And all it does is make you look more nervous and unsure of yourself. You can be unsure, but to dump it in his lap is a whole nother thing. So in this case, when I'm breaking down jealousy, the J is for judgment of self. Sometimes we judge ourselves too harshly to self-attack. The E is for emotional avoidance. I was one of those, an avoidant. I suppressed, brushed around, or just shut down. It was one of the 3. And you had to figure me out. And I'm going, I don't have myself figured out. So when people go, that's me, you look intimidating, you look sad, you look neutral, you look like you don't have any joy in your life. I didn't because I was trying to figure out what was going on with him to the point where I wasn't understanding what was going on with me or I wasn't accepting of that. So it's breaking down or having a breakthrough in this way. Think of it this way. Unfelt emotions don't disappear. What they do is leak on to everybody else that's around you. Your children, your husband, your friends, and in many cases, your co-wife. They'll leak on to her. And then what ends up happening is it becomes the responsibility of others. It's our responsibility to make ourselves happy, absolutely. Sometimes we have to sit in our emotions and name the emotion without adding drama to it. So, for example, if you say, I feel this way because he married again, this is all his fault, he needs to fix it. No, I feel jealous. Don't blame shift and put a tail on it and make him the problem. Because there's a lot of men that are not out there trying to make their wives jealous and fight each other, and it's not attractive to a masculine man. That is not attractive. They don't want their family fighting. Do you want your family to fight? No. Men that are married to more than one wife, up to 4 in Islam, they don't want their wives fighting. That's their family and they love them. They want them to at least be cordial and get along and think of the greater good and the big picture and children, his children, your family, and how that looks to them when you're not getting along, when you won't communicate or shut each other down or create division. Sometimes you can create division and not even know it. So the A in jealousy is for attachment, fear, so replacement and abandonment. Attachment that is unhealthy can be a weakness. And when you unconsciously attach yourself to your husband, it can feel like you are suffering or suffocating. It can feel like you're suffering or suffocating. I used to put all these parameters on myself. I can't go here and I might see them. Nope. I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm putting myself in a personal prison with this mess because nobody told me to do this other than me. Another thing, L is for lack. Your lack story, what does it look like? L-A-C-K. What does your lack story look like? What are your insecurities? You know, there's not enough love. There's not enough time. There's not enough safety. There's not enough value. I don't have anything. Instead of thinking of what you can gain. I remember a friend of mine said to me, I don't have these yes men ladies in my life. Shout out to them. I love y'all. They're my sisters. I don't have yes men ladies. So what they did for me, and I thank them and they know who they are. They honored my marriage by saying, I hope that people know, even your co-wife, that this made you all closer. Not that my co-wife was trying to rip us apart. It was never the plan. She will tell you that. And she has said that on these lives. She has said that in her videos. And I believe her. There was a time I didn't. That was really early on. But when I got to know her, I understood. She was a real one for saying that. She could have said a lot of things. It's not in her nature to create beef. She'd much rather not have it. When she said, you know, you all had this history and it was never about just me focusing on him. She said, no, the whole family. I don't know too many women that would say that and actually like really mean it. I don't like it, blanket statements, but I've met many women and there's division there. And hers wasn't that story. It just wasn't, you know, it just so happened that that was not the case. So for me, it's beautiful to hear that and know somebody saying it with certainty and sincerity in their heart. So I love that. And she taught me. But one of the things I had to understand was that if anyone was creating a lack story and division, it was me. I had it for days. But my friends told me that, you know, this actually brought you all closer because we didn't, Coach Nadir and I didn't have access to each other like we did in monogamy. So we were able to say, okay, I miss his presence. I miss her presence. I wish I could see them at this time. We would exchange texts and things of that nature to let each other know I'm here. I'm here. And I remember he actually said to me one day, and he came to visit, and it was brief. He said, I don't want you to think you don't have access to me. I'm still here for you. You know, he wasn't gone out of our lives. He was switching out houses, a 24-hour shift. Many people ask that, and I want to make sure that I pay attention to that because that's important. That's a frequently asked question. But he wasn't gone from our lives, but it just so happened to be a day in which he was not in our home for the day, but he would come in that night, and he said, in passing, still, you all still have access to me, because he knew I wasn't calling him for anything or help or texting. I had to deal with, and he knows why. I had to deal with what was going on with my children and my home and what was going on with me. And because I was like, he's a man, he's strong, he's always presented that way to me. He doesn't need me. He's got a new wife. He's good. So I didn't feel at the time I needed to police him or reach out. And I was just being rigid and very tunnel vision. So my peripherals were not activated, I'll say, because it's not that they weren't there. I just deactivated them. And I'm going to keep it a buck and tell you that O is for, and we're going to move into O, is outsourcing our work. What we have done in many cases, and every woman has not done this, so if it doesn't apply, let it fly. Remember that. If someone else controls our worth, they actually are controlling our peace. So if I looked at friends that, hey, I had to drop some friends because I knew that because they were unhappy, they wanted me to be too. And I was saying things, and we were exchanging like, oh, woe is me, I don't know what we're gonna do. And I started to understand something, that certain people that I called friends weren't ever my friend, because your friends are not, they're gonna say what you need to hear, not what you want to hear always. But they also don't kick you when you're down. And I experienced that, and I dropped that friend like a bad habit, because they said something in a room of women about my husband. Because the funny part is that her husband and my husband are still very good friends, and I would say brothers to this day. And she and I are not. And we don't need to be. We ran its course, and I'm cool with that. But she said something, and I know it was from a place of pain, but don't aim at my husband when you're interested in hurting yours. Don't use me, because my situation at the time was more tolerable than hers in her mind. In her mind. And that quick story time, that just happened because a sister that was at this, we used to meet once or twice a week. And this sister had said, you know what, Fatima, I kind of like how Nadir is doing it versus anyone else right now, because he's not forcing you and your co-wife down each other's throat to make you all be you friends. He's giving you some grace, some time, letting things kind of unfold a little bit slowly right now. And that's the best thing to do, because emotions are high. That doesn't mean keep your family separated from each other for years. I'm not telling men to do that. There's children involved. They should be able to be in each other's lives. I don't care what anybody says, especially when they're siblings and bonus siblings. We have one time to do this thing right, because it's not, again, just happening to us. So I celebrate men that say, listen, my children are going to know each other. And ladies, you are going to have to let me do that without distraction and discord. I love when they step in and step up and say that, because I'm a child that was separated from, was a child that was separated from my siblings, and it's because adults could not get their stuff together and get along. My relationships with my siblings suffered because of it, and we had to reverse engineer, and there was a lot of hard feelings involved. Okay, so that's why I caution everyone, to the sound of my voice, to be very mindful, especially wives that are married to men in polygyny that have children, to be very careful with the relationships and the rearing of your children, because they can be harmed and become collateral damage if your level of maturity is that of someone that is a toddler in this case. Be very mindful of that. So I'm going to move on. But that story and what that sister said about my husband taught me a lesson about respecting how he was moving, even though he didn't have everything in line like he wanted it to be as a leader, as a man, as a husband, as a father. I can look back on that and say and see and understand, I get it. I get it. What I have done. I probably wouldn't have done as half as good as he did. I'll tell you that. That doesn't mean I agreed with everything. That doesn't mean that we didn't have our disagreements, but I see it in a different light now from his perspective. Um, the way in which he explained it to me, you know, I can't understand it fully because I don't have access to his body and his intentions. But I really look back and go, man, I wish I'd opened my mouth and opened up the conversation about polygyny, and jealousy would have felt much different for me. That's why this live is so important. And I wanted to discuss this today, and I'm coming to a close. So let's get to the letter U. Unprocessed identity shifts. Um, Polygyny comes with many marital transitions. So if we get too wrapped up in our husband's identity, what ends up happening when he wants to practice polygyny, we will feel like I was mentioning earlier, that he went off script. The script and the delusion that we created, that he's going to live in a box or in a dream with us, that we created and curated and told him and commanded him in some cases to live in and be a part of without any agreement from him. So, for example, in my mind, it said, okay, I'm this age, he's this age, we're young, we're married, this is what I want. He doesn't want a broken family, nor do I. We believe in the nuclear family. I believe in gender roles. I absolutely do. I'm not changing on it, and he wasn't either, and he's not going to. And we're going to raise our daughter and prayerfully have more children. I've gone up to 3. And we had some beautiful surprises, of course, and bonus babies as well for me. He has 2 bonus babies, but for me, absolutely, I have 5 bonus babies. Some of them are grown, so I want to always acknowledge them because they're so important in my family. But I'm telling you, years ago, I did not foresee our lives unfolding in this way. Now, I did say in my mind, I said, if he's Muslim, and he still is, and he wants to practice Islam fully, then he would absolutely embrace polygyny. He will one day, I think, hope not, will want more than one wife. So I was not blind to the fact that that's something that he would want to do. Okay, so what ends up happening is that understanding that you may feel broken, but it's about what you're willing to become. I felt broken, and then I got tired of feeling that way. And I said, no, no, I'm sick of this, and I want to become a better Fatima than I am. I didn't think I'd be a polygyny coach and a marriage coach and a life change and confidence coach. I did not see that on my radar. However, that's my calling. That's what I love to do. And it's important work. Okay. The inner work is some of the most important work that I'll ever do. Ever do. So S is survival mode. If you're in survival mode, it is wise to not be in survival because you're operating in a space that creates a disruption in your nervous system. So having an environment of peace and a willingness to create it is important. Many people want a successful marriage to fall in their lap, or they want their spouse, mainly their husband, to work on that. And then when he's done, bring it over here just so that I can reap the reward of that. And that's not how a successful marriage happens. It's not sustainable. So you can't shame yourself into regulation. into emotional regulation. We can't shame our husbands, ourselves into that. So part of frame, femininity, respect, affection and admiration, maturity and exclusivity is understanding. And it's not going to happen overnight. I don't want you all to think that, okay, Coach Fatima has it this way and the family looks like this. It took some time for us to become the family that we are today. Yes, we all had common goals for the health and well-being of our family. Did we make mistakes? Absolutely. However, we had this goal to say, you know what? As individuals, I screwed up and I need to hold myself accountable for my screw ups and my growth. So if each parent is growing and investing in themselves, support to the health of the entire family and to the health of the individual marriages. So I don't command my co-wife to get over here and work on my marriage with Coach Nadir for us. She better get over here and fix this mess. Because then people would go, what is wrong with you? That's delusional and that's unrealistic. Yes, because many times as women, as wives, we have unrealistic expectations of our husbands. And then we tell them to come over here and fix and you oughta, and look what you did. We get good with the insults and the disrespect and the division, the comments. We're not regulating ourselves well. So another thing is the embarrassment that we may feel in polygyny. I dealt with some of that because here comes every nosy person saying something to me, and I'm like, I gotta answer another question until I stopped. What did I do? When they said, well, why did your husband marry somebody else? Did you know? Did you not know? I said, you know what? You know where you can reach him? You can reach him on Facebook. And I know your husband has his number. You guys can call him. He just left the message. Did you ask him when you saw him? Oh, no, I would. Well, then don't bother me with it. Because what ends up happening is that you're asking the wrong person. Because last time I checked, my husband was not me and I'm not him. That backed people up off of me. Or I would simply tell them, that is absolutely a private matter. What are they going to say? I still want to know. Well, you should tell me anyway. What do you mean it's a private matter? You notice that on our OPR channel on YouTube, we don't tell you all the great details, every single communication that we've had as wives married to Coach Nadir within our marriages, and every little instance and every little flare up, argument, disagreement, triumph, challenge. We have not shared that because we have to have something for ourselves. And it's not people's business. It's not. And that's how you protect your marriage as well. You don't need to share everything with everybody every time. We're putting too much of our business in someone else's ear. So I just had to make sure that I said that because that's so important, because then when we're met with judgment, when we're trying to think of how we can justify things, we've given others ammo to hurt us. We don't need help. We don't need help with that. So making sure that we're being mindful of what we're saying to ourselves about ourselves and about our marriage is vital to the success of our marriage. And understanding, you might not do it today, that's all right. That's all right. You might not do it today, but keep it in the forefront of your mind. Understanding that our husbands are not our children, and we're not here to mother them. We're not. We're not here to mother them and have them seek permission from us and use our jealousies that are natural as a weapon against them or our co-wives, or to sit there and talk to our children and demonize our husbands, our co-wives. I have had countless sessions and different emails and questions and OPR as a whole So where we've heard wives poison their children against their father, it's all his fault. If he didn't, if he does, I told my daughter something. I said, you don't have to like everything, but you have to be respectful. You have to be respectful. That's important. And if you want to have a conversation, have one. I will not get in the way of them having a conversation with my co-wife. I never have. That's what you want to do that, but be respectful. That's your elder. Whether you appreciate, her presence or not, that's your elder. My message is, we raised you to respect your elders. Because my thing is, don't let me hear that you are not being respectful. Because then we're going to have a problem. We're going to have a problem. Because that's not how we operate. And they've done a pretty good job. Now, if there was something that was a miscommunication or they could have done something better, then that's a conversation they've had as grown women with my co-wife or whatever the case may be, or I'd give them a firm reminder. This might have been taken that way because this is how it sounds to me. So can we rephrase that? And they do. I mean, they've done a pretty good job. And I love that I have a co-wife that's open to having a conversation with my daughters, and I don't go in there and try to muddy the water. I don't need to do that. I would never do that because it's important that everybody's able to say what they need to say when they need to say it without me going, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah. Maturity. Because the goal is not to hurt the family, to hurt the marriage or marriages. It's about what you do inside of your own. And it's honorable work to have a successful marriage, but what are you willing to give up to do it? So I just wanted to make sure I share that with you on this Fulfillment Night Live or Fulfillment Now Live, depending on which side of the world you're on. And I was going to absolutely take some questions, although I don't see any currently, and this should replay on our YouTube channel. You all should have access to this specific live. And remember, if you want to pick up your book, Let's Talk Polygamy Uncensored, you can go to letstalkpolygamy.com for details on that as well. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is the Q&A portion of the live. So I'll just tell you, one of the things that we're asked is, have Coach Nyla and I had any conflict? We've had miscommunications, but not conflict where we're going off on each other, yelling at each other, calling each other out names, or putting our hands on one another. We would never dream of it. What we do is make sure we have a good time together when we do. If we're not feeling good, we'll say that. We'll text each other. We have a group chat between myself and my co-wife and my bonus daughter, to check in on one another, share funny memes, reels, whatever we can, and we get to them. We get to them. If we don't take it personal. Okay, we don't take it personally. We're busy people. When you have a family this big, and my co-wife's busy is not my busy. It's different. Okay, she has small children. They're my bonus babies. I love them to death, but she has the lion's share of taking care of her smaller children. They're not toddlers. They're not toddlers, but they're children nonetheless. My baby is 13, and the youngest gentleman in our family, he's younger than that. Bless him. He teaches me stuff every time I see him. I love him to death. So I love them all. But our lives are not the same. So that's one of the questions that, we kind of get. My freedoms are not hers right now, but she does what she likes to do. And that's different than what I like to do. And some things we like to do are very similar. And I really like that she sticks to her style, her color palette, her fashions, and what she wants to do. with her life, and she's a busy mom. And I really, whoo, it gets on my nerves when people go, well, she can't. Listen, we're not the same person. Understand that. Coach Nadia didn't marry her to get a second Fatima. I'm one of one. She's one of one. He loves us for different reasons. That's another question. How can he love the two of you, or how could a man love more than one wife at the same time? Do you have children? Do you have people in your life? Guess what? That you love more simultaneously. So, for example, we have daughters. I have one daughter. So Coach Nadir, myself, and our baby girl. And I always wanted a daughter that looked like her father. And I got it right on the first try. He got it right on the first try, I should say. And our oldest daughter, she has these beautiful big retinas. I'm not saying anybody's gazing into Coach Nadir's eyes. I know I did. And one thing I noticed about him when I first met him is that he had big, brown, beautiful retinas. I was like, wow. And longer eyelashes than mine. So I remember when we had our daughter, when I was pregnant with her, I said, I hope she has his features. And she did. She did. And I thought it was so beautiful. But then when we had our second daughter, I didn't stop loving my first daughter. I didn't throw her away. My feelings didn't just ease or ooze out of my body. I loved them at the same time. And then I had another daughter. Then we had a fourth daughter. Then we had 3 boys. And guess what? Coach Nadir loved all of us at the same time. We shrink men's hearts. They don't shrink their hearts. We shrink them. We say, well, you can't do that. And they go, yes, I can. We go, no, you cannot. Because I said so. Because if you do that, that hurts me. And that, for them, is not the case. So we put these parameters on them that they don't embrace for themselves. And we should be mindful of that. So, again, is that something that happens overnight? No, but just understand that if you know that, then you may feel better if you understand it in that way. Okay, we're sharing our husbands with whoever knows them, and that's in their circle, not just our co-wife. Okay, so I need to cut this live off, and I appreciate you all for being there. But that's just being here. But that's just a couple questions that I had for this Fulfillment Night Live with Coach Fatima. I'll be back prayerfully next week. I'll make it my intention to come back. I also would like to say I thank you all, and I speak on behalf of our family for the du'as and the support and the positive energy and vibes that you all bring, and the maturity that you all brought to this channel and our Facebook and IG platforms, whatever platform that we are on as a family, because we're family first. And I always have to say that because we're family all the time, whether we're in front of the camera or not. And we support each other, and we support those of you that have supported us. So thank you for that. Thank you for your well wishes and your thumbs up. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, share this video, because sharing is caring. And if you so happen to be on or were on IG, make sure you comment HEAL to connect with me or book a call with me, Coach Fatima. You can get our playbooks as well. Let's see, I'm trying to actually share that with you all right now, but something is not loading, not working on end. Just 1 second. Let me see if I can share this with you so you can look into the chat, and that should work right there. So visit that link within the chat on the screen as you know it. Remember that you are going to want to hit the notification bell as well, so that you know every time that we upload, because you're not going to want to miss it. Also, watch all the videos, because we do have many videos where we're answering questions that you may have. You can look back on them. We don't do sides here. So if you so happen to watch Coach Nyla's video, you will benefit from it. If you're a man that's serious about practicing polygyny the best way that you can with the tools that you may need to create lasting legacy, make sure you watch Coach Nadir's videos as well. All right. So with that being said, I am going to sign off. So as we always do, make sure you're growing intentionally, loving fearlessly, and connecting on a higher level every single day. I'm Coach Phantom. I will see you all in the next one. So, it's all like a peace.